All right, great. So now we just we go ahead and start the recording. I guess I got to start sharing. Share the screen again. Share. All right, and here we go. Perfect. So, welcome everybody. It's good to see you all again. Hopefully, you had a good break since graduation. But you know, as always, I never go away. I'm always going to be part of your life. So, everybody that's joining is going to be muted just by default, just so that there's no like background noise. But there will be an opportunity to ask questions later in the presentation. So you can always unmute yourself later and we can discuss this. So what I was hoping to do today is basically to walk you through how we support you and how we support our companies moving forward, and all the various programs that we have. And also just share some best practices on how you can help us really help you, okay? And then the last part of this is, we're going to go over, we're going to go over basically like some Q&A for you as well, right? So first thing I'm going to do is just introduce myself. You guys already know, but I'm going to also introduce my team. Then we'll go over all the other areas as well. All right. So this is us. This is our alumni success team. You obviously all know me. I lead the team, but I also have two other people on my team. Mark, who you also met because he was mentoring. I think he was like your second session, as well as Victor. Mark is really good at partnerships. He's also really good at like email funnels and things like that. So if you're creating like an email funnel system and you need somebody to basically review it, Mark's like really, really good at that. So just the FYI. And Victor's job is basically to constantly try to track what's going on with your business so that we can proactively help you, as well as also just to basically activate the network around you. And of course, Adeo Resti, our CEO, he tends to get involved a little bit later down the line, like for example, in your fundraising and things like that. And we're going to go ahead and cover that. But all of us basically try to make ourselves as available to you as we possibly can. That way, you always have somebody here for help. In addition, there's lots of other mentors in the network right now. There's 13,000 mentors in the network. And if we can't solve a problem for you, or we don't have the expertise to help you with that, we basically try to connect you with somebody in the network that can be helpful for you, okay? So, just the FYI. On a high level, this is basically kind of how our support system looks, all right? For everybody that just graduated the program, we're going to talk about this. There's lots of benefits. This is a little outdated. Where 13,000 mentors will probably be closer to 14,000 by early next year. You got $2 million in partner discounts. And we have all these various like grad mailing lists, as well as various calls that we do as well. In addition, we do several like demo days based on various themes and things like that too. So we can definitely help in various different ways. The next part I'm going to cover is Founder Lab. This is an umbrella of postgraduate programs, and we're going to cover that a little bit later in detail. But basically, what we're doing is we're launching all sorts of other programs to basically kind of hold your hand through the entire process of like getting to product market fit, to raising your first round, raising your Series A, and things like that. This is the Founder Institute Select Portfolio Program. This is basically relegated for our top 2% of our companies. This is basically concierge support. So for the best of the best of the best, basically we're kind of like on call for you to basically help you grow. Now, in your case, because you graduated Silicon Valley and I was your local leader, this is a little bit different because I've been helping you for a long time. So I'm going to continue to do so moving forward. But as a general rule, for most companies, right, like the farther you get along and the better you do as a business, the more and more and more we engage to try to help you scale, right? And so the farther you go, the more support we have, and we're going to cover that later in this presentation. So let's kind of go back and talk a little bit about alumni resources. This is something that everybody basically gets access to, right? I can't stress enough how valuable it is for you to basically be connected to these 13,000 mentors in our network, right? Most people don't take advantage of this enough. And guess what? A lot of our mentors just want to help, right? They're pretty helpful. So like a lot of the experience that you've gotten from the mentors in FI here locally, that transcends across the entire network, right? And so it's not uncommon for a founder to say, I want to do business in a different state or a different country or something like that, and be like, hey, I need help with, to open some doors here. Finding an FI mentor is a really good way to connect. And there's a tool that once you basically officially graduate in our system, and we're finishing that up here soon, you'll be able to access, and you'll be able to basically search every single mentor and try to get to them. Oftentimes, the easiest thing to do is just email them directly. If you can't get to them for whatever reason, we can help you as well in the grad group like we talked about. In addition, we host several private events on a regular basis. We're going to be hosting a lot in the next few months. You feel free to keep attending those. Another thing too that a lot of alumni don't know is that you can come back and go to any session that there is. So if a Founder Institute cohort is hosting a session, you can go back to it and attend it. Now, why is this valuable? Let's say you're fundraising, right? And you know that a mentor that is an active investor is going to be mentoring at that session because you looked at the curriculum. Well, you can show up, you can hang out at the bar, or you don't even have to go to the bar sometimes. You can just go to the session, introduce yourself, and meet that person. I used to do this when I was fundraising. So it's a really, really good way. I actually got my lead investor by following this exact approach, right? And so you can always go back, and that's not necessarily just for fundraising purposes. It could be for business development purposes. It could be for whatever reason, right? So you can always go back and go back to a session. This is something that every alumni gets just for being an alumni. All right, let's talk about Founder Lab. So Founder Lab is basically a structure of programs that we're doing to try to help our companies break out faster. So the first one we're going to talk about here is Funding Lab, which I've talked to you during your semester. But basically, it's a 3-month structure program. Think of it kind of like FI, but for fundraising. You're going to get a dedicated fundraising advisor and coach. That's me, as well as Adeo, as well as several other local leaders that might be in your area that I could probably connect you to that will be helpful in your area. So if there are people that you need help with, I can also offload some of that advice to you. We help you with reviewing your terms. Just today, I looked at 3 separate different term sheets. Ironically, they were all in 3 separate different languages that were not in English, so I had to kind of translate them. But basically, every day I feel like I look at like something like between 3 to 5 term sheets when I'm going through Funding Lab, especially during this phase of the program where companies are starting to negotiate terms with their investors and things like that. So, I will basically help you through this entire process. Adeo, our founder as well, he will also help as well. We do a lot of pitch deck review materials, similar to kind of what we did during the program, but much more detailed because this is actually getting you ready to go out and fundraise. We try to kind of like do it FI style where we basically create guides as well as email templates so that you kind of follow the proper protocol to reach out. I read emails all the time. So, like part of the assignment work or part of the assignment sprints, you'll be submitting like emails that you're working on and things like that so that you can really, go and have an efficient process. And, during the program, what I do is that I take your, all of your emails, all that, and I give you feedback on that. And I do that for everything. I do that for your deck. I do that for your target list of investors, right? And so what happens is that every week a fundraising sprint is due. I come in the system and give you feedback on that. Plus you set up office hours. Plus there's an actual Slack group, Slack community where we have almost 300 companies now. They're all pretty strong because they're all gone through Funding Lab. They've all applied and got in, which is also a part of the process. And then you can also go and chat with them as well. We try to give this, deals and things like that as well. So basically on a high level, this is how Funding Lab works. A couple like the criteria, like this is basically like the minimum criteria that we have, which is that you have to be exclusively working on your company, obviously, because otherwise you're essentially shifting all the risk onto the investor. You need to have a functioning product as a minimum. These days it's just kind of a requirement just because like investors, see that as a risk if you can't do that. Ideally, you should have some level of customer demand or traction, some sort of pilot, some sort of growth, something to basically build a story around and say, hey, look, this company's starting to break out. Otherwise, it's just really, really hard for you to do that. And, we put in here, be willing to spend at least 20 hours a week for 3 months, but realistically, fundraising will take 30 to 40 hours a week, just to be honest, just how it goes. So in order for you to be able to do that, that means you need to have a team, right? Which we kind of talked about during our fundraising session. So one of the things that we look at is that if you're just kind of like a solo founder, you don't have a team, you don't have anybody to delegate the growth of the business to, while you're actually exclusively working on fundraising, we'll just tell you to come back to a future program. Now that's okay, because we run the program 3 to 4 times a year. We've actually bumped this up to 4 sessions now. So every 3 months there will be an opportunity for you to basically join Funding Lab, and we are definitely going to be working to try to help you. Right? There's no additional cost or anything like this. We just want you to basically raise money. Now, the program itself is very, very successful, although the program does work like FI. So if you are not keeping up with the work, right, we will either tell you to come back to a future program, or you will just drop out yourself and tell me that you want to come back to a future program. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. We've actually had several companies that have been very successful at fundraising their second time around. They just found out like the first time was just not the right time for them. So it's not like the end of the world, but during our admissions process, we try to prevent this as much as possible, because we do not want you to waste a month of your time on fundraising when you can be doing other things, right? So we look at these applications very diligently to ensure that the companies have a realistic shot at raising money. Otherwise, we're essentially sending a signal to the market saying, hey, we think this company can raise money. And if the company's not ready, and it's just bad for everybody all around, right? So we want to ensure that the timing is right. But the process is similar, right? There's weekly sprints, there's working groups to start with, and then once the first month is over, then you are going to be going around just basically blitzing various investors, right? So month 1, we get you ready, pitch deck, data room. We do a lot more webinars during this time. We bring in several mentors to try to kind of like coach you through things that we can do in a group. And in month 2, you're just going out and pitching investors, right? So right now we're basically midway through month 2 of the Q4 Funding Lab program, and the average founder so far has pitched somewhere between 30 to 40 investors one-on-one, okay? So in order to do that, it takes a lot of work, right? Because you basically need to have, an introduction to each investor that you meet. Now, the good thing is that, because the FI network is so large, you can basically leverage the FI network to at least get halfway there, if not more, right? So this is why you want to stay in touch with your mentors. For those of you that are going to not fundraise till early next year, the mentors in FI, as well as several other mentors that are on the mentor roster that maybe didn't mentor this current cohort, they all want to help, right? So go out and reach out. And in the 3rd month, what ends up happening by the month 3 is that, most companies at this point will have what we call hard circled commitments. These are people that said they're in, they've agreed to terms, and they said they're going to wire the money at a certain amount of time. And so what we try to do at this point is help not only with the term sheet preparation and review, but also with the entire closing process and the entire closing strategy as well. In addition, to try to basically generate even more demand for your round, what we've started doing are what we call Funding Lab demo days. We hosted one on Wednesday, Tuesday. We hosted one on Tuesday, and we had 550 people registered for that. We had 140 people concurrent, and most of them were investors. And pretty much every single company has written me back telling me that they've gotten inbound investor leads. So we'll do things like this for you as well. But I want to be very clear, you're not going to succeed at fundraising unless you yourself put in the time and the work. And anybody that tells you otherwise is just kind of basically BSing you. So just keep this in mind. This is a very difficult thing. So only do it when you're ready. The next program that we're actually spinning out and starting here in Q4 is what we call Product Market Fit Lab. There may be a better name for it, but we're calling it right now. And basically, the structure is as follows, right? Like month 1, we're going to help you kind of not only figure out who your customer is, but work together with your customer to figure out kind of like what your KPI is that you should be going after. And you're going to be doing several market tests while also going after talking to several vendors if you need a vendor, or co-founders and things like that, to develop an actual spec for your product so that you can actually build the right product for the right audience at the right time. And we're going to basically help you through that entire process. Once you do that and you build out the right spec, in month 2, we're going to do a review to ensure that you're kind of on the right track, building the right thing, minimally viable product if it makes sense for your business. And then you're going to basically come out and actually launch a product in month 2, or a minimally viable product to actually test some leading assumptions. And then in month 3, what you're going to do is you're probably going to have to fix that because it's probably not going to work exactly as everybody thought. And then you're going to basically do another turnaround on that. And then you're going to start to think about either growing it or continue the process, right? So we're essentially going to try to help those of you who have never like built a product before, or those of you that are trying to, for those of you that are good at product, like trying to, kind of match the product development with the actual cycle, because we've had a lot of founders kind of building the wrong things at the wrong time. So again, we're creating some structure and some products. So this is going to start opening up in another week. We're going to launch this in a week and a half. So if any of you are interested, make sure to let me know, and we're happy to help you basically try to get to product market fit. All right. Another program that's at your disposal, this is for later down the line, is called Venture Lab. This is for Series A companies, right? So these are companies that have serious product market fit, lots of employees, they're growing. A good example of a company that's in Venture Lab right now is the gentleman that gave you a keynote at your graduation, right? Aaron from Rever, right? And this is basically less structured and much more advisory and kind of like one-on-one help. So we think of it kind of like a 6-month program where we're doing basically bi-monthly calls to talk about strategy. Now, for those of you who know what Series A is like, this is probably not a surprise, but for those of you that don't understand it, it's like ridiculously difficult. Just like to put together the documents that you need in order to pass diligence can take weeks. And sometimes it's even worse than that. And so we basically kind of try to help you through that entire process to make sure that you don't miss anything. We also have a dedicated mentor roster of advisors that also want to help our companies, or do help our companies with this. And in addition to that, we make targeted introductions to Series A VCs that make sense for your business. All right, so that's Venture Lab. So whenever you're ready to raise a Series A, just know we'll be there for you. All right, last thing here in regards to the programs is what I meant when I talked about is a select portfolio program. So these are the top 2% of FI alumni like worldwide. So, for the top of the companies that we believe in, that we believe have the most potential, and this is based on kind of like the diligence that we get from like your performance in our postgraduate programs and things like that, as well as just kind of your market traction. We basically have priority support, right? Which makes sense, right? If you're like starting to break out, like, it makes sense for our group that's managing a portfolio of 4,000 plus companies, right? To basically hone in and double down on like the best of the best of the best, right? It's just classic portfolio theory, classic portfolio math. Kobe, who's trying to do an angel fund, would understand this, right? It's like the best companies generally are the ones that break out. And we want to kind of go all in and try to help them. So for companies that make it into the select portfolio program, basically it's concierge support. Not only am I on demand, Adeo is also on demand. We basically my team is instructed to basically do hand-to-hand combat to try to go into any FI mentor to try to get you in front of them. Anytime we have any sort of opportunity for press, for any sort of partnerships, any sort of like demo day or anything like that, basically the select portfolio companies get the first opportunity at these programs. In addition, we make lots and lots of introductions. We have, like for example, Mark will sometimes even help do actual sales outreach for certain companies, and he's done that. He's also actually gone in and done like created their entire like sales funnel, right? So we will do things like this. You know, it's not uncommon for me to sometimes even interview potential hires that are important to the company. So this is the kind of thing that we'll do for the companies that break out and are like the best ones, right? All right. So how do you maximize the support, right? So you know kind of what's available for you, all these tools and things like that. So number one, the top companies in our portfolio all send monthly updates, right? At the very minimum, you should do quarterly, but really you should be doing monthly. It's a really good habit for you to do this because it actually helps you kind of manage the business. I think I was talking to, actually talking to Tara at graduation about this. It's like if you're sending out monthly updates, right? And you know, you find yourself with like a week to go at the end of the month, you're like, damn, I got to send something, right? It almost creates like a self-managing tool, right? Because you kind of have to send something because you're letting people know what's going on. And now you have accountability, right? If you don't have like a structured track or a structured program like FI has been for like the last 3.5 months, right? Like it's just, you have to start self-managing yourself, right? And so sending out monthly updates is a really helpful thing for your business. But more importantly, it's a really helpful way to get people to proactively start to help you. It's not uncommon for me to see, an update from a founder that's asking for something, and I know that I can help them because I know that there's either a mentor in the network that can help them, or there's an event, or there's some sort of like press, or maybe they've launched a product and they'll just have our press team go out and try to really like promote that, for example, right? So it's an opportunity for you to basically have asks. It's also an opportunity for you, for us to proactively help you. And I can't stress this enough. It's really difficult for us to help you if you have only 2 weeks of cash left. And we find this out with 2 weeks left, right? But if there's a month left or 2 months left of cash or something like this, it just makes it easier for us to try to help you, whether it's with advice, whether it's with an introduction, whether it's with anything, right? Whether it's with a promotion, whether it's with like a discount on a deal or something, right? That can basically help you stretch that runway, right? I'm actually having a call with the founder tomorrow where I kind of saw something about that in his update, and we basically are kind of redoing his entire strategy for the next 3 months, right? Just to kind of increase, the runway, right? So be proactive. I put this email in here called grads@fi.co. It's an alias, and everybody on my team reads it, right? This way you can ensure that this will get read and this will get basically prioritized because we all read it, right? So make sure that you start getting yourself in a habit of basically writing out an update, write your KPIs at the top, make it short and sweet, and then just send it out to everybody. Same thing with all the mentors that have been tracking you for a while or been helping you, at least the ones that you've had a good relationship with as a minimum. You should definitely be adding them to your monthly update because they could probably help you, right? Another thing that helps too is just to regularly update your FI profile. There's like a actual need help field in there. So it's like, I need help with this. We read all of that and we try to basically, proactively reach out and try to help you with that, so please, keep us in the loop so that we can help you, right? Like if you go silent from here in the next month or two, like it's really hard for us to try to help you. Also, alert us about upcoming events. We got an email the other day from like a founder telling us that they're going to do a Kickstarter campaign, and it's looking like it's going to be pretty successful, but it was, with 3 weeks to go. And that gave us plenty of time to kind of set up all of our channels, start scheduling things out on social media for the founder and things like that. So, that was a really good way to go about it, right? Now, had that founder reached out to us like the day that the thing launched, sure, would we have like promoted that? We would have sent out a tweet or something. Of course we would have, right? But it probably wouldn't have had the same effect. This way we were able to actually create like an actual strategy about how to basically help promote the company, right? Our marketing channels will help increase your reach by 10x, at least, if not more. So for example, like let's say you're fundraising, like PR plays a big role in fundraising, right? So it's a really good way to get inbound leads. So let's say your round is starting to come together for you. you reach out to me, it's like, hey, Mike, like I got half my round committed. It'd be really nice if we can start doing a little bit of press so that we can get people to kind of see what we're up to and have the market, start to come to us a little bit, get some more inbound. So what we can do is we can write like a very SEO optimized blog post on our site, which is extremely like user friendly, and people on Google basically like very SEO friendly, I should say. So it's like it'll trend to like the top of Google, and we'll start to get you some inbound stuff. In addition, we can also help you with press by looking at our press contacts, see if we can get you in front of some people as well, and things like that to try to kind of help do that. And also we can help you create your entire PR strategy, right? Like if I see your press release beforehand, and if I think about like kind of how your strategy looks like, we can really help to optimize that so that you can, get to the goal that you're trying to reach, whether it's to get customers, whether it's to get some more investors and things like that, right? So we have plenty of people in the network that can help you with PR, but more importantly, we can help you with PR because of our resources and, our entire, website and blog and things like that, as well as our social media presence. We have lots of followers on Twitter, very strong following on Facebook and all of our social channels and things like that. Very big following on LinkedIn. We promoted a company's news. We were talking about it in the staff meeting on Wednesday, and the company got 5,000 impressions in like a day on LinkedIn. Just so you can kind of get it, right? Just like in like a day, right? So we can help you with all this stuff, and we want to help you with all this stuff when you have news. But again, we can't help you unless we know if you have news. So please just let us know if you're thinking about this, or you're doing this, or you have something to do that. That'd be great. Also, if you want to write a blog post about your FI experience, obviously we'll share it. Mention us in your social media, and then we'll like retweet that to try to help you get some more press. So this is another way that FI can help you. We talked about all this stuff. So look, this is the end of my presentation. At this point, I'd like to kind of just open it up to like questions and answers. But look, we're here to help, and the best way to help us help you, right, is to be proactive in letting us know what's going on with your business. So I'm going to stop sharing my deck, and I'm just going to open this up for questions. So you may have to unmute yourself to basically ask any sort of questions.
When does the next founding lab start? January 1st? Or what's the exact date on that one?
We don't have an exact date, but I can tell you that January 1st is not a good date. It's probably going to be most likely the second week in January, because that way people are kind of like back from like vacation and they're like kind of ready to go all in and start fundraising. Okay. But we will open up.
Come back to the US on that one.
Yeah, but we'll open up. We're going to open up applications though in December, and the application is pretty robust. I mean, it's a lot more involved than what you use to apply to FI, right? You're going to have to submit a video. You're going to have to give us your pitch deck. You're going to have to answer a lot of questions that will help us kind of figure out if this is the right timing. And, and based on that, we'll see if you can get it. We'll make a decision on that,
Okay. When should we start that process if we are interested in the next quarter?
Yeah. So again, if we know what's going on with your company, right, like we will invite you to apply. Right, so keep me in the loop of what's going on with your business, and I'm happy to help you with that. And I will send you an application.
Okay, so obviously there's a certain pattern you want to see from here to the end of the year, and that based on that.
Yeah, look, we will notify you when applications open up. But in order for us to know what's going on with your company, to even right, it's like it'd be really good if you can get on a habit of sending out a monthly update. Right. Certainly you should put me personally on it just because I was your local leader, but you should also put grads@fi.co so my team can also kind of watch what's going on and also, make sure that you get into like the right, notifications for the right things.
Makes sense.
So Mike, you mentioned some help with marketing, social media, but I guess that's more for B2C. Do you have?
I disagree with that actually. Like a lot of our Well, Rever, right? Let's use Rever as an example. I mean, so it depends on what your needs are, right? So for example, in Rever's needs day, we're basically looking for customers, and they're looking for to hire an account executive right now. Like those are the biggest things. Like account executives number one, actually. So we've been basically promoting a lot of their job posts, on social media, in our newsletters and things like that, as well as also trying to basically go to get this in front of strategic people to say, hey, and in doing so, they're learning about the company and see if this is interesting. Okay. Also, there's like events and things like that that come up, right? And pitch events and all that. And then that's how we know that, it makes sense for Renzo to pitch at this event because, this is the kind of thing that makes sense for his business, right? So no, press helps for B2B, man. It helps a lot, actually.
Okay.
If we target it at the right people, right? And this is also why we want to get proactive about it, so that the earlier we can get, the more we can create an actual strategy around how we do this. And if we're going to run ads, for example, like on LinkedIn to the right people and things like that, we want to target the right people for you. Make sense?
Okay. Yeah. Probably we have a one-on-one tomorrow. We can talk a little bit more about this. Yeah. That's one of the two main areas of concerns that I have at this point.
Okay. Other questions?
So just to clarify, can you enter Funding Lab at any time, like in say like a year?
Yeah, you can. Well, I would hope that it's sooner, but in general, we run Funding Lab 4 times a year, basically every quarter. Mm-hmm. That being said, for companies in North America, there's really, more or less only 3 programs that actually make sense for you. So there's the fall one that makes sense. Then there's the winter one and the spring one. All the other ones, like the summer one, doesn't make sense because what happens in summer, people are like on vacation and things like that. So you don't really want to raise, like we talked about during our fundraising session, like you don't want to raise money during a time when investors are not active, and summer is a really bad time to do it. But this program will be there for you whenever you're ready, just like all of our programs are going to be there for you whenever you're ready. Other questions?
Hey, Mike.
Hey.
Yeah, this is Mike. How different is the funder lab from like Y Combinator?
Yeah, it's a very different thing. I mean, Y Combinator focuses more on growth of your business. Same thing with like Techstars. It's basically a pre-seed accelerator. Actually, what Y Combinator will often recommend is that you don't focus on fundraising during the YC program, okay? And it's only after YC that you should do that. And it basically, it's a program that helps you accelerate the traction of your business. Funding Lab is a program that's designed to help you raise money. It basically creates a process around fundraising that basically every entrepreneur that has fundraised essentially follows. There's like milestones around it, and we basically kind of help you through the entire process, hold your hand through the entire process, review your term sheets, talk about, negotiate, help you negotiate, and things like that. So it's there's only one singular goal of Funding Lab, which is to get you money, and that's it.
Okay, I have a question. Can you speak generically, I suppose, to how successful your recent Funding Lab has gone? How much interest have these companies gotten? Have they done what you expected in terms of fundraising?
Yeah. So yes. So we can talk about the one that's going on right now. I can kind of give some stats on that. So we enrolled 49 companies. We had our progress review, I believe, 2 or 3 weeks ago. We're down to 34 companies now. I would say on average, the average company at this point has met with 30 plus investors. We're like week 6, right? So it's a 12-week program, so about halfway through. We've had several companies already close. So I don't remember the exact number, but let's say like 5 or so already closed, part of their round. And we have over half of the companies that are left right now that are already hard circling or have hard circled investors with term sheets and things like that. And they're just trying to get the wires, right? And by our next review in 2 weeks, it should hopefully be like, I hope the entire amount of people, but most people should be close to that. And so by the time we actually finished a program, I would say, if not everyone, most people, 90% that are still in the program at that point or so, are gonna do at least what's called like a first close, where they start to actually take down money. And then they'll continue to keep closing, until the year end, basically. But I want to be very clear, like, we can tell you what to do, right? We can kind of create a structure and a program around you. But if you don't do the work, it's like really difficult for us to help you, right? And the more that people do and the more traction they get with fundraising, the more likely it is, or the easier it is for us to help, like with like introductions and things like that to potential investors. And we do that, but that's not the main reason. Like, if you can't build a pipeline on your own, then it's just going to be hard to close. And I think this is one of the tough things in the industry right now, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. It's like, oh, if you just do this, you don't have to go and meet with 50 or 100 people. And honestly, that's just not how the market looks right now. So that's something you're gonna have to do. Like, you basically have to put in the work, and we can tell you what to do, but we can't control what's going to happen to your own, to your psychology after you've gotten 10 no's in a row. And if you've done that, are you going to give up, or are you going to keep going, right? Like, that's not something we can control. The good thing is that, like I said, we do this 4 times a year. Whenever you're ready, we're going to help you with it.
Hey, Mike. Arca here. Just a quick question. So, great presentation. So, is there a way we can access that slide deck anywhere? Because it has a lot of good information to, just for later on, just to go back to.
Yeah. So, Ankit, I'm recording this, so I'm going to send you a recording of this.
Gotcha. And I'm also assuming that the alumni profile is something that we could access from our just the FI portal website that we've been accessing everything from thus far.
Yeah, exactly. We just got to wrap up like the internal graduation on our end, where we basically have to kind of graduate people in the system. But yes, once that's done, you'll be able to access that.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And then just a follow-up question in terms of, post-graduation, as we kind of come out of the FI program, as we're talking to a lot of external parties and a lot of third parties in different kinds of situations, whether we're talking to software vendors or we're talking to potential advisors and other kind of situations, is there certain kind of information regarding the company that you would suggest that we absolutely do not share with anybody? Or like, from a pitch deck perspective, there's some things that we should just some things that shouldn't be shared, if that kind of makes sense in terms of like, getting founders in trouble, early on. Does that kind of make sense from a question?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna just give that as a general rule. There's not that much in your pitch deck that you shouldn't share, unless you basically have like a customer pipeline and you don't want your competitors to know about what your customer pipeline is, right? So some of you have an actual like pipeline of customers that you're showing on your deck. That might not be worth like sharing with other people, right? Some people like to like not share their business model either, because they think that that's like really innovative, and it's true in some cases that's the case. But as a general rule, I wouldn't really worry too much about that. I mean, part of the reason why we're creating this product market fit lab is basically to kind of try to help people, prevent people from making several mistakes that we've seen about how to basically work either with a vendor or a co-founder or something like that to build something. But as a general rule, like, one, try to use common sense, right? Like, if you don't feel comfortable with sharing something, that's probably a pretty good indicator that you should just not share it. So just don't share it. Right? That's number one. Number two, as a startup, you can't afford to get yourself involved in any sort of long-term deal, right? And so whenever you see people saying, I want to negotiate a lease for this office space, or I want to do a 12-month contract for this vendor or whatever, then that's just also like not something that you want to do, right? Because it's just, you don't have that kind of flexibility or the cash or anything like that, you know? So be wary of that. And then the last thing I'm going to say to this is make sure that you read all of your legal agreements. I know they're not exactly the funnest thing to read, but you should read them and you should understand them.
Right. No, that makes sense. Thank you.
So my question is about,
Yeah.
so, as for previous event, we asked you to contact us with mentors because we have access to their emails. From your speech, I understood like moving forward, we don't have access to their emails, right? Do we have to directly email them using the online resource that we don't have access, or how the mentoring program will work moving forward?
Yeah, so with mentors, look, man, you can definitely find.
Can you repeat the question? We didn't hear the question.
Yeah, so the question is as follows. Yeah, Aika's here in the room, so it's a little complicated. So the question is kind of how to contact mentors, right, and how to get in front of them. Look, finding a person's email is not that hard. You know, there's this tool called Reportive. It's now LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Mark talked about it in your second session on how to do that. So it's not that hard, whether it's through FI or something else, to find their email. But it's always good or best to try to find an introduction. Sometimes the best introduction that you'll get is probably through the Alumni Success Group. Not that we have a really close relationship with some, mentor that you're trying to reach in, I don't know, in Bogota or something, but mostly because we can, create an email, craft an email saying that's very formal, that's like from FI headquarters, and we can say, hey, mentor in Bogota, we really think you should meet with this person, right? And so it can increase your probability of success, right? So that's how you should handle that,
So I had a question going off that, because you've introduced me to a few people, Mike, and maybe it's that I haven't, facilitated enough introductions, but sometimes I feel weird about how do you approach that correctly? What's the expectation here? Is it that we expect them to be willing to meet, so you should offer a time to set up the meeting, or ask them if they're willing?
Yeah, it's a good question. So stylistically, what you should do, and I've made several introductions lately, and I have to other people too, is like stylistically, you should always move the introducer to BCC. That's number one. Number two, just be mindful of people's time, right? And so if you can get what you want done with a phone call, or a Zoom or something, then get it done with the Zoom. This is not the case with investors. If you're trying to meet investors to pitch them your business, it's better to meet them in person. So you should try to ask for that if you can. But as a general rule, like, you can get advice over the phone, and hopefully that person, you can get them excited enough about your business to want to continue to engage and help you more, right? So as far as what the ask should be, that should be very specific, ideally, to the person. So you should do your research, look on LinkedIn, figure out what their background is, figure out how they can help, and basically kind of craft an email saying, hey, I'd love to get your advice on this. Give your background, right? Make it very personalized. Last thing I'm going to say about this, the best way to work with introducers, with people that can introduce you, like myself and things like that, is to craft a really good forwardable email that I can just forward on to this person. And then I can say, hey, Colby has a really interesting company, see below, would you like an intro? Right? And then they don't have to say yes, right? They're not forced to take the email like intro, right? So just if you could do that, that's really helpful. Other questions?
I have a question. I know you talked about the mentor list that you have, but I also wanted to know if it's possible to get in touch with probably a couple of graduates who are in the same kind of field as we are, working in, say, for example, me would be events design and services.
Yeah, I mean, the graduates are some of the easiest people to get in touch with, and they're the most likely to be helpful in various ways, right? So whether, you're fundraising or things like that, certainly. I can help with that just because I know who the grads are, so I'm probably a pretty good resource for that. But then there's in your FI profile, and we're updating the UI here. It's kind of ghetto right now. We're improving it, but like in your FI profile, there's a way to search the actual alumni in your space, and then you can also just reach out to them as well. And this is also really helpful for fundraising too. So finding alumni that have raised money is a really good way to try to procure some more introductions. Is there any other questions or anything that you all wanted to discuss?
I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, I wanted to know, you guys, do you have people like in the social arena, like more the grant areas? Do you think, because I was thinking about strategy.
I can't understand what you're asking. Can you like just repeat the question, please?
Yeah, sorry. I live downtown, so it's a lot of my signal is only bad in the house. But wanted to know, do you guys have like a social? Because I'm thinking about changing my strategy to more of a, I don't know, my fundraising strategy around impact. You know, that more is grants.
So you're breaking up again. If I was to summarize, you're looking for impact investors or an impact strategy or something like that we can do with. Well, impact is a huge part of what we're trying to do at the Founder Institute. Like if you kind of see, we're like actively seeking companies that are trying to make a big impact, and we host several impact focused demo days on a regular basis to try to help there. So it's particularly companies that are trying to solve like the UN sustainable goals. So that's actually a big part of that. So it's a really good way to kind of work around some of the press that we're already doing, because the best press that we can do obviously is to talk about the best companies. And if it's around a topic that is something that we're trying to push hard anyway, the timing of something like that could be really good, right? And so yes, we can definitely help you with that as well. In regards to fundraising, like I said, as I said, we have a program, Funding Lab, that will help you throughout that process, and we'll figure out part of that is your strategy about who you should talk to and things like that. So we'll help you with that too when you're ready.
Hey, this is Sachin Mike. Just want to say thank you. I'm definitely going to be joining, and anything I can do to help support until January, let me know. Obviously, I'm going to have my head down, focused on machine, but if I can help anybody else and be a support for your program, let me know.
Great. Thanks, man. Other questions? I know you all are busy founders, so we don't have to take the whole hour here. We can definitely log off early. I just want to make sure that make myself available. If you feel like you need to go, or you've got all your questions answered, you can definitely you can drop off. I'll hang out here for like the next 10 minutes.
Mike, this is Janice.
Hey, Janice.
Hey, listen, you had mentioned that you didn't have a chapter in Detroit, but by some chance, are any of the mentors in Detroit?
I don't know. I would have to
take a
look. Like I said, there's 13,000 of them. So I would have to figure out how to help with that. I don't know. But I'll tell you what, we have a pretty strong chapter in Chicago, which is relatively close to Detroit. So, I would probably be that first place where I'd start.
Okay. That's okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe going off topic, but I always wondered, how do you guys bring in mentors? How do you guys?
They have to apply, and then we basically, we first of all check their application. Then we sometimes will give them a test. So we'll have them mentor like one session or something like that. And we look at the reviews and the ratings that you guys provide us. And if their ratings suck, we never invite them again. If their ratings are good, then we continue to invite them and tell them to come back, right? So that's kind of how we look at the entire mentor roster. So we first review their application, then we give them like a test run, and then we continue that process moving forward.
Okay.
So Mike, I noticed that one of the requirements for the funding lab is you have to quit your job, have a team. Do you recommend doing, or are they're the same requirements for the product market fit lab? And do you require?
No, you don't have to quit your job for the product market fit lab. Hopefully, though, you will be on your way to quitting your job after the product market fit lab, because the whole point is that for the companies that aren't ready to fundraise right now for various reasons, ideally in the perfect world, you finish, you go into product market fit lab, you show a little bit of traction as a result of this that actually helps you with your story for fundraising anyway. Then you go out, raise money, get the thing done, and then you're off to the races, right? But sometimes for companies that are farther along, whether it's within the program or they're able to break out faster, sometimes a product, funding lab is the next best step anyway. So, we're not trying to pigeonhole somebody into that. It's just another option.
Right. And application process for that as well?
Yeah, so right now it's a beta, right? So we're going to be testing this out this first quarter. I'm going to be sending you all some information on that. And then we're going to formalize it more in Q1.
Great. Thank you.
So I know Ika's over at the Founder Institute right now at the headquarters. I remember when Jordan and I came in at the beginning of the program, you were like, you guys can come in this time, but it's normally not allowed until you graduate. So my question is, are we available to use like the backyard space when events aren't going on to work and get feedback, things like that? Or like what's the, I don't know, how's that work?
Yeah, so the answer is no, not right now. What we're trying to do is, as we're virtualizing more of our team, we definitely are looking at figuring out how to basically best optimize our office, and co-working is part of that plan. We currently have several portfolio companies that are working out of FIHQ right now, but we don't have an actual plan about how to manage that moving forward with new companies, right? And I'd like to get back to you on that, hopefully in the next few weeks when we actually have a concrete plan on how to do that. But as of right now, the answer is no. You can definitely set up office hours with me and things like that, but not right now. But as we move forward, that's kind of how we were thinking about using our office space.
And as your portfolio sort of grows, are you guys expecting other branches maybe within the Bay Area?
Well, we do have 2 branches in the Bay Area. So we have the Silicon Valley cohort and the San Francisco cohort. So, and both of them run twice a year, right? So pretty much like every quarter, right? So there's always going to be a program for pretty much most people in the Bay Area. But yes, we're always looking, right? We've tested Oakland. We did one test there, and we might look at San Jose as well. So we're always looking to figure out how to kind of make that all run. But right now, that both of these chapters support the Bay Area pretty well.
Are there any specific KPIs we should strive for to get into funding lab? I know I have some in mind, but maybe for all the others as well.
There's not specific because there's kind of more specific to the company. You know, if you're a B2B company, at the very minimum, it'd be really good for you to have some pilots. At the very minimum, in the best case scenario, you're starting to actually get some paid customers with some low churn. Essentially, something that you can build a story around. Part of what we do with Product Market Fit Lab actually is to try to help you set the KPI that matters for your business. And we basically kind of help you stay on top of that, right? That's the thesis behind it. And so that's kind of a whole nother, but for Funding Lab as a general rule, right? Like it'd be nice for you to have a story around like growth, right? Like that you have been able to add several pilots into your, into your funnel, that some of these customers are converting to paid, and then that the funnel looks really good on the front end too, where you have some really good qualified leads that, make it seem like, hey, if I'm going to give this person money, they're going to execute on this plan and really blow it out. You know what I mean? So it's, in your case, I mean, honestly, like I think if I were thinking about your business just specifically, it'd be really nice if you had 3 to 5 pilots closed in the next, by the end of the year, and 1 or 2 of those going to paid. Just given like the ability for you to put a pilot, which is just dropping an iPad in and starting to kind of expand it out, that's actually a pretty good KPI for you. And especially if you can say, well, look, we put this iPad in and then we started our first pilot in October. And now here we are in January and there's 25 iPads in this business, right? Or 25 licenses in this business. Now you're showing growth within the account, which means the account likes you. You're showing that you have other accounts that are kind of at this process, so you should be able to replicate this. Oh, and you're showing that you can actually make money. Now, these are I think a good place for you to kind of like shoot for. I think you could probably build a story even with less than that, but if that's kind of would be ideal for you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
No worries. All right, we have 2 more minutes. Nobody has any final questions? Well, look, if you have other questions, you know how to reach me, right? You can set up office hours anytime you need it. I'm your local leader, and I'm going to be helping you forever. Or email me if you have any other questions too. I'm looking. No problem, Janice. Type in the chat. No problem, Janice. Look, let's do this. Let's do this. All right. This is a really good opportunity for you to like really take the rest of this year and take your business to like the next level. I think that I would love to see every single one of these companies in Funding Lab starting early next year. Some of you may not get there for whatever reason, but that would be a really good goal, right? So being able to be working exclusively on your company would be a really good goal for you. If you were not doing that, if you are working exclusively on your company, let's see if you can ramp up the traction. Let's see if you can ramp up the customer uptake so that you can be in a good position to raise some money early next year. All right, everyone. Good chatting with you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye.